Patriots. Good morning. So great to see so many great Patriots. We're going to do a short pop up today. Bring in Tony Schaefer in a minute. I wanted to kind of give you an idea of the schedule this week and who's coming in, who's going to be hosting, and watch us tonight on Newsmax Cable. It's part of one of the things I'm going to be working on in the days ahead is doing more stuff on Newsmax Cable. So tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be filling in on the balance. I'm going to have a lot of great guests, including Mike Huckabee, who will join us, and Pat Fallon, the congressman, as well as the great Tony Schaefer and Blaine Holt. They are taking on all enemies, foreign and domestic. You see them on Newsmax all the time, both Newsmax Cable and N2 streaming. They're fantastic, and there's obviously a lot of national security issues to talk about, particularly China. 2 days of war games around Taiwan, and the Taiwanese president is saying, "Oh, we want peace. We're happy to work with China." Well, he's got war games going on encircling his island, and a lot of people around the world wondering what China is up to and whether they're thinking about moving on Taiwan before a certain election that's coming up. So we'll ask Tony about that in a minute. We'll do a quick pop up today. Hope to watch you. I hope that you'll watch us together 8 p.m. Eastern tonight on Newsmax Cable. Real quick, I want to hit Jesus Calling on the way in on this Memorial Day, and it'll be great to talk to Tony as well, talking about those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Seek my face at the beginning of your day. This practice enables you to put me on and wear me throughout the day. Most people put on clothes soon after arising from bed. Similarly, the sooner you put me on by communicating with me, the better prepared you are for whatever comes your way. To wear me is essentially to have my mind, to think my thoughts. Ask the Holy Spirit to control your thinking. Be transformed by this renewal within you. Thus, you are well equipped to face whatever people and situations I bring your way. Clothing your mind in me is your best preparation for each day. This discipline brings joy and peace to you and those around you. And this is inspired in part by Psalm 27:8. You have said, "Seek my face." My heart says to you, "Your face, Lord, do I seek." So what a great way to start this day. I think I see Tony there on deck. Tony will be man of the controls tomorrow. He's got to see a mud shark. Good
You
morning.
do.
I love
Good
it. That's
morning,
such a
Ed.
great
How are
show.
you?
Fantastic, man.
It is.
Always
It's great
great
for
to
the
see
day,
you.
too, being patriotic.
There you are. So tell us what Memorial Day means to you. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about. We got a couple of news stories to hit. We'll do a short pop up today, and then you'll be here tomorrow bringing in some great guests, and I'll try to pop in as well tomorrow.
I will, yeah.
Tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. Tony and Blaine Holt, General Blaine Holt, will be joining us. Talking about some of these big national security issues. But, a lot of people say Happy Memorial Day and they're out barbecuing. And obviously, Memorial Day is not really a happy occasion. It's the men and women you served with, many others served with, who paid the ultimate sacrifice. It's a time for reflection.
It is. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about this because people tend to conflate Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And they're similar, but not the same. And then there's, of course, the few days ago we had essentially like military acknowledgement day, basically giving a day to the active duty folks. So today is meant, Ed, and this goes back a long history. Used to be called Decoration Day. The idea is that we acknowledge and give thanks for those who have given, as Lincoln said in the Gettysburg Address, the last full measure of devotion. That last full measure is their lives. And as much as I think everybody recognizes that this is a great time to go out here in a bit, right downtown here at Edenton, there's going to be a ceremony to honor the fallen veterans at 11 o'clock. So I'm going to go down and attend that. And it's really a solemn day that's meant to help us as citizens and those of us who have served to acknowledge and give honor to those who literally have laid down their lives to protect the Republic and our way of life. Veterans Day honors those who served, and that's in November, as you know. We do a veterans parade. I'm on the board. I was the grand marshal last year for it, a Veterans Day parade in D.C. And that day is meant to actually honor those who have served and are still living, essentially, those who have been in the uniform and serve the nation in some form. So those are the distinguishing characteristics. And today, Ed, is, I think, much more solemn in that we should be looking at how we can best reflect, like the prayer you just talked about regarding God and the presence of God and what He's done to protect our nation and allow it to prosper. It is the prosperity that has been protected by the men and women who've served in uniform and given the lastful measure of devotion to the nation, who have, I think, solidified the path forward for us as a people and for the United States as a nation.
Absolutely. With Trixie in the mix is in the live chat and says that she flies her grandpa's flag. Says he got his eye shot out while serving in the military. Sounds like he survived, but obviously we have so many veterans who go through so much,
Right.
and there are many different ways of sacrifice. Beyond the full measure that we talk about on Memorial Day, and so we certainly honor her grandfather and all those who
Absolutely.
served. Yeah. So I want to put something up because this was an interesting little thing that I saw over the weekend. Because all of a sudden the other day, I guess it was Friday, it was like the anniversary of George Floyd's death, and Biden and everybody else
Oh,
was on the Democrat side was spending all this time about George Floyd, and we've seen the autopsy, and we don't have to go down that rabbit hole just yet. It's been talked about. But this meme I thought was very interesting going into Memorial Day. On the way into Memorial Day, all these Democrats were going on and on about George Floyd. And then someone posted Biden when the 13 who gave their lives in Afghanistan after that awful terror attack. And Biden left them as sitting ducks, and he was checking his watch. And you remember Jen Psaki recently wrote these memoirs saying that this was like fake news, that
yeah,
that he didn't look at his watch, and then, well, let me see if I click on that. If you look, there's the photo, my friend,
yeah,
and it a picture says 1,000 words.
it does. Let's break this down a little bit because also Joe Biden apparently almost replaced Roger Staubach at the U.S. Naval Academy. Did you know that, Ed? That apparently Joe Biden and Roger Staubach almost switched
I
places.
was gonna get to that in a minute. So what is this
Well,
now?
I'll say I'll get to I'll let me get to this other. So it wasn't just Biden who tweeted out about George Floyd. Let me point this out for those who have not been following. George Floyd was a flawed man. Uh, and look, all men in history have flaws. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But for the Democrats to try to replace the honor and dignity of those who served in uniform with a guy who died of a drug overdose. If you look at the autopsy, was
Hmm.
there mitigating things? Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying that their police didn't have a role. I'm saying if you look at the toxicology, he overdosed. He was a porn star. There's videos about it out there. Not that
Mm.
I've seen them. Just saying.
Good.
And he was a misogynist. He actually was arrested for essentially abusing women. So the idea that the Democrats as a group, because
Mm.
Kamala Harris did it too. Several other members of his cabinet jump out there and try to basically eclipse George Floyd over the purpose of this holiday weekend is atrocious. And I
Yeah.
don't think most Americans who recognize the importance of those who have literally given their lives for the nation and
Hmm.
the recognition of that for a guy who was he was a kind of a criminal, and I just think I don't think um, it's a great optic, Ed, for the president to be saying things like that on the day
Yeah,
that
and
he should
people are
be.
talking about how he held a gun to a woman's pregnant belly,
That's
and
right. That's right.
there's just one story after another, and obviously innocent until proven guilty. I didn't adjudicate every single issue that was brought against him, but the Democrats didn't either. One would think, Joe Biden didn't go through the files, and yet they
No.
celebrated him for days and days and days, multiple funerals where Sharpton and everyone else was speaking. But for now, years later, let's put it this way: there are people who were on social media in the last couple of days saying, if Biden is reelected, there's going to be either a federal holiday or some federal recognition of George Floyd's death
Yeah,
that's going to be marked, that Joe Biden is going to sign into law. And you agree with that?
I do. Look, these people are in for a penny, in for a pound. These guys are going all in. Ed, I don't. I saw his Morehouse University speech too, And again, I work with a lot of minorities, and I
Hmm.
enjoy the community here. I love we all get along. And I think people would be mortified to come to find that they're still on a plantation, because they're not, because people have
Right.
choices. And if you listen to Joe Biden's verbiage in that, everything that has been established for equality. And I was born in 1962. I'm an old guy, and I came through a system where we were taught to be colorblind, that nobody is any better than the other, especially in the military. And now I come to find all these years later, Ed, by someone who's way older than me, I was wrong about that apparently, because apparently there's inherent racism that I just don't see, and I don't believe it's there. And I think this is all about trying to create a victim mentality that the left can reinforce and put out there, so that they become, I'm just going to say it, the saviors. Oh, we we want to help. And by the way, did you know that people in the Bronx, if you're black, you don't know what a computer is? Did you know that, Ed? Because
Yeah,
that's
I saw
according to the
that
governor
the
of New York.
Democrat governor Hochul said that. She
Right.
also, insulted anyone who wanted to go to this rally with Donald Trump, or her own Democrat constituents, it sounded like, who are flipping Republican. She trashed them.
Yep.
I want to stay on the Bronx thing. You took me there, and then we'll get back to Joe Biden in a minute.
Sure.
Isn't that, when we're talking about not just the celebration of George Floyd in recent days, but also the idea that the Morehouse speech that you mentioned, um, it was all about victimhood, I think
It
is the
was
word you used,
absolutely.
and you're right. Okay, so to go back to the Bronx then, so that's Biden's approach the weekend before Donald Trump's rally in the Bronx. Don't you think that part of Donald Trump's success in the Bronx was not just showing up, not just, rallying the crowd and doing his deal, but the fact that when he actually spoke, he didn't talk about black people or Hispanic people who were in the crowd as victims. He celebrated entrepreneurship. He celebrated, like you said, people are not still in slavery. People have choices. People
Yeah.
grow. The system's not perfect. It does leave some people behind. It leaves some white people behind who don't keep
Absolutely.
up. The system's not perfect. We're never going to make it perfect. There were wrongs many generations ago. We've been trying to fix them. We're trying to become a more perfect union, as someone once said.
Right.
But Donald Trump, I guess, just on that one point, again, an imperfect man himself, as he would acknowledge, and as has been dragged out in the over the years.
Yeah.
Um, but Donald Trump made it clear that he wanted to deliver a unifying speech in the Bronx, and that he wanted to celebrate black and Hispanic people, which is why that gentleman who stood up at the end with the cowboy hat and said, "Look, I'm a black Puerto Rican, and I want to join you in making the Bronx great again and America great again, and I want to endorse you." He didn't pander. He didn't do what Hillary Clinton does, where she changes her voice to a black voice when she goes to a black church and says, "Look, I've got hot sauce in my purse because I think black people like hot sauce," which I had never even heard, but I guess she pushes stereotypes when she wants to pander to people. But Donald Trump didn't do any of that pandering.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know that either. I mean, I came up with
I like
all
hot
sorts
sauce.
of.
I didn't know that that was a thing, but
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, when we were in the army, you always had Tabasco sauce for those horrible MREs or C rations in the old days, because they were flavorless, because they've been
Give it
sitting
some
on the shelf
flavor.
since
Yeah.
1948. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you're eating food from before you were born. Just saying. Anyway, not that that's a bad thing, but my point being, my point being, Ed, is that yeah, I live in a rural area of North Carolina. Poverty cuts both ways down here. If you ever come out and visit, I'll drive you around to some of the places. And we are not a rich county, and
Yeah.
we have to manage our budget very carefully. So there's no dearth of inequality regarding economic inequality. It goes around. It is what it is. But the idea here is that, oh, by the way, you've been in New York as long as I have. Remember, we talked about meeting Donald Trump. Donald Trump used to be loved by the minority community in New York, right? I mean, they loved him
Until he ran for president as a
until he ran for
Republican, and
president,
then it
right?
wasn't cool anymore, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about power, Ed. It's all about the left trying to find a way to undermine anybody who disagrees with them. We all have flaws. Look, I put them in my book. I'm very honest about the stupid stuff I did. And look, we all, but the left has the same flaws. It's just they try to basically uh, create an optic that those flaws are the centerpiece of an individual, which is not. And they try to use it then to destroy as Hillary Clinton said, which I will quote her: "The politics of personal destruction. That is their brand." So
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let me just put up a little bit of breaking news, and then we'll turn back to Biden and that speech at West Point. This is
sure.
coming out that two Egyptian soldiers, I guess just a few minutes ago, were killed after an exchange of fire with the Israeli army at the Rafah border crossing. So I'll have to dig into what prompted that. But this is a tense situation.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know all that. So it's very dangerous because I think, as I've said a number of times, miscalculation is the greatest threat to escalation. And
Hmm.
I've been to Egypt a number of times. I support the Egyptian people. They've been very helpful in trying to bring stability to the region. They've actually been allies with the Israelis on this. And I'm really surprised. I hope that it's not something that expands because the Israelis have actually helped President al-Sisi. By the way, he's not president of Mexico. Just saying, in case people
Yeah,
remember that from Joe
Biden
Biden.
said that.
Yeah, Biden said that. So President al-Sisi. By the way, I don't know if you knew this. President al-Sisi is actually a U.S. Army War College graduate. So he
Hmm.
actually went through and was a
Well, but I
general
don't know
long
if,
before.
yeah, that's very cool, but I don't know if you know that Joe Biden was actually appointed to the Naval Academy.
I
Uh,
didn't know.
and this is posted by Paul Shaipula, who said there's no record of this ever happening. Biden is an embarrassment. So I don't even understand the logic. He's at West Point. You've got this wonderful rivalry between the Army and Navy, which you know as an Army man. And he goes to West Point and says, I was appointed to the Naval Academy. And I mean, everybody knows his story. He's president of the United States. There's been books written about him, there's been a million magazines. There's no record of him being quote unquote appointed to the Naval Academy. So I guess that's what you were referring to earlier.
I
Was
was.
he potentially going to be the quarterback at Navy, but then Staubach, he was the backup to Staubach? Is that what we're hearing now?
I guess so. Roger. I love Roger Staubach. As a kid, I used to watch. Him and Terry Bradshaw go at each other. The
Yeah,
old
that was fun.
Dallas and Steelers rivalry. What a great time to watch football. And Roger Staubach was just spectacular. And I don't know if you knew that Roger Staubach actually graduated and went to Vietnam, and actually would spend each day, Ed, throwing 100 times just to keep his arm in shape. So he served his time in the Navy and then went back and became a professional football player. So I guess Joe Biden tried to jump in because I think Joe really wanted to go to Vietnam and he couldn't. I don't know why. And he wanted to join I guess this appointment to the Naval Academy got lost in the mail. I guess it's one of those things that he got it and it just never showed up. So I don't know. But it's very clear that this is disrespectful and dishonest. And I am appalled. And I don't know if you saw the video. There's a video of him talking about the leadership of America, and then he says, "Oh, you can clap now." It's like nobody was digging his speech even at West Point. So
Yeah, I'm going to show you in a minute what was going on this weekend where Donald Trump had these big crowds, whether he was being cheered and jeered at the Libertarian
yeah,
convention.
that was interesting.
He had guts to stand up to him, I think. The mainstream
Good for
media
him.
made it as, oh, he was jeered. They always look at the negative. But let me just put this up because we're talking about Biden and foreign policy. Obviously, he was not appointed to the Naval Academy. But in his State of the Union, one of his big lines was that he was going to build this pier basically out in the
Oh,
water to bring in aid to Gaza. And I
yeah.
don't know if you saw this video. I mean, there's
Oh,
so
yeah.
much that flashes across. The humanitarian pier that Biden made to deliver aid in Gaza has washed away.
Yeah.
If this doesn't sum Biden up, I don't know what does, writes Graham Allen. And it's almost to me like the Biden administration in one metaphor, being washed away. I mean, and I hate to say it this way on Memorial Day because it was our U.S. military building it. But if you give them a mission that maybe doesn't make sense, by the way, how is this pier like smaller than something you'd have in your backyard? I mean, wouldn't we build the American military build a pier unless this is just one piece?
No, no,
But
no, 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 no. Let
what
me
happened?
let me break it down for you. So, yeah, this is if you wanted to take one little snapshot of history, this is a great metaphor for the entire Biden administration.
Yeah.
So let's start with what it's achieved. The military has achieved over 30 days, moving upwards of about 1 million metric tons of food into there. So I know that sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's nothing. That's you see those semi trailers, Ed, that go on ships and
Yeah.
on train
Yeah.
cars. That's 50. They've moved 50 of those, equivalent of 50 of those cars into Gaza over 30 days.
Hmm.
Ed, in any given U.S. port, they move 15,000 of those containers a day.
Yeah.
So this is nothing. So what they've tried to do is essentially a large virtue signal. As a matter of fact, you may want to have Blaine and I kind of break this down tonight on your show,
Yeah.
because this is insane. And by the way, there's literally 5 Army ships, 3 Navy ships, and multiple platforms. That this is an Army thing. This is an Army platform. What you saw was Army. Army had to develop over the Cold War some rapid docking capabilities for roll on, roll off. And so the sad thing is they picked the wrong thing. Right now, the tides are prevailing coming down from northern part of the Mediterranean Sea, and it makes it very rugged. So, Ed, they literally had options. They picked the wrong option. They picked the one which is most fragile because it
Jeez.
requires multiple pieces of docking, like you see there,
Yeah.
that have to be in stable water. It's like this is what you'd want to put in a pool because it doesn't take uh, the hard waves and disruptive seas of the Mediterranean that's present this time of year. And oh, by the way, Ed, they were told this. The people in the Pentagon said,
What
"Yeah,
the
I don't think
hell?
this is the best system." Oh no, we're going to go with this big dock. We want to have optics.
It's nuts.
Okay, yeah, it was all about optics. It was about showing a process. It was about being able to demonstrate the might and the actual results be damned. So they've literally delivered virtually nothing using a platform that is fragile, as we've seen. And by the way, it will produce very little, if anything, going forward because of the thing. Oh, by the way, there's boots on the ground too. Just saying, you,
Yeah.
you can't have those things linked to a shore. And oh, by the way, the recovery, Army guys had to do it. Just saying. So it's
It's
all
the
about
Army guys. There you go. And the Navy guys are just out there on boats. I know you
Navy
Army
guys are
guys like
smarter because they're not on shore. That's right.
they don't have to. Yeah, you're the grunt. There you go. And yeah, hit that like button. People are saying, let's do that. Tony's going to give us a little preview in a minute of what he's going to be up to tomorrow. I don't know if you've booked anybody yet, but I'll help you tonight. And you've got an idea in tomorrow, 9 a.m. Who
Yeah.
you're going to bring on?
So I'm going to probably bring on Jerry Corsi. Dr. Corsi is, if
He's
that's
great.
okay with you, Ed. Jerry's
No,
a good
you
guy.
do it.
Jerry's. By the way, Jerry likes the fact that we have fun. So I think that the audience has fun, we have fun, and it's a great way to get up and doing things. So we'll probably have Jerry on, and what we'll talk about is obviously some of this the optics of what we're doing these days. I mean, Ed, one of the things, and I do. By the way, let me say this publicly. I appreciate the opportunity to work as a partner with you on this because I think we have a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And the thing is, I don't mind my work being checked. As an intelligence guy, I wasn't always right. I was right a lot of the time,
Yeah.
but I was always open to being criticized, saying I'm not right or that I'm incorrect. But I think most of the time, as you know, Ed, because you challenge me too, if I
We
say
have fun.
something, I've got something behind it. So I'd like to believe the
Always.
audience recognizes that too, that we'll do our best to give them information. Well, I believe it's important. Instead of DEI, it's essentially what I call entertain, inform, and educate, EIE. So
I love it.
EIEIO, just saying. So, and I think it's fun to do. So yeah, we'll probably have Jerry on, and I'm going to try to do something with you to bring some of my rock and roll friends and my Hollywood friends on too. So
That's great. Well, we'll
we
do
haven't
some
talked
regular
about this, but
segments.
yeah, I've got a lot of folks in the rock and roll community. Cherie Curry is a close. Cherie Curry is a Cherie is a close friend. I can't say her name. We're
That's
close friends.
good.
And then I've got some other folks from funny movies that you probably know that I was texting with
That's great.
certain people who may have been in a movie called Airplane, and we'll see if we can get them to come on sometime. So just saying.
There you go. People say you can't beat dimples and eye candy on a Monday morning. You guys rock. We love that. That's
A sea
good.
of mud.
Blessed morning. That's right. And don't forget the folks at Colonial Metals Group. You see the number at the bottom. Check them out. Just give them a call so they know that we got a lot of patriots out there. And given the currency problems, the debt problems, consider moving your IRA over to Colonial. Check them out. They got the number 1-800-805-4034. Real quick, before we go, so
Yeah.
tomorrow Tony will be here at 9 with Jerry Corsi, and he's great, Dr. Corsi, and used to have him on Fox and Friends, and he was ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Whether it was Russia, as you were, ahead of the curve, and he got dragged into some of these investigations and stuff, and it was all
They
bunk.
almost sent him to jail.
Yeah, they tried to. And so Tony will be here Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Larry Schweikert, the Patriots historian, was going to host on Thursday. And then I think the boys probably, George, Ralph, and Chuck and the gang, Sean, we're going to see if they'll do it Friday. So it's going to be a big week. I'll be traveling in D.C. most of the week, flying tomorrow. I've got a memorial service on Wednesday that I told you about. But before we go today, because we just did a quick pop up and we wanted to get everybody going, and I'm sure everybody wants to get on with family and whatnot. Make sure you watch Tony and I tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax Cable. We'll talk about what's happening with these two Egyptian soldiers being killed,
Oh yeah.
apparently, in the exchange of fire with the Israeli military, the IDF. We'll also talk about the pier that's now washed away and another. Maybe it's a metaphor of the Biden administration, but let's just talk on the way out. So Donald Trump goes to the Libertarian Convention. It's the first time a president or former president or even a nominee. He's all of them. Was president. He's now a former president. He's now a nominee again
Yeah.
for a major party. And so he checks all those boxes and goes. Joe Biden would never go and deal with this crowd.
No.
No, no way. And I'm watching it and thinking the mainstream media is just going to write about the boos and the jeers, but Donald Trump stood up to them, and I thought it took an interesting line on a number of things. Let's start with this one, which is something you knew well since you called it early on that hey, the Obama team, Obama, Biden, Susan Rice, all these people surveilled Donald Trump back in the 2016 campaign into, as a president elect, as Donald Trump said, tapping the phones at Trump
Yeah.
Tower.
Yeah. I called it with
S-
you. It was you.
Called it on Fox and
You and
Friends. You
I.
were the first one
Yeah.
to call it out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting in the speech, Donald Trump said, look, I'm with the libertarians. I want less government power. I
Yes.
want less government surveillance. They surveilled me. I'm with you. Among other things, that was an interesting line.
So I think that the libertarians are an interesting group. I actually, my friend Bill Bob Barr ran for their ticket, ran their on their ticket one year, and a lot of us recognize that there's a lot of Reagan concepts within the Libertarian Party: less government, more freedom. I think the Libertarians go too far in that. I think that they believe somehow we should be friends with everybody overseas. Like, yeah, it doesn't really work like that.
Mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
think as much as they want to see maximum freedom, they don't recognize that there are things that have to be done, the hard things to protect the country. And that's where I think Trump understands and he draws the difference. And he talked about cryptocurrency. One of the things that the libertarians are big on, I have several libertarian friends, is this untraceable currency, which is like, yeah, I kind of get it. It's the IRS doesn't like it. That's why they're trying to create this U.S. Treasury digital currency so they can track everything. I don't think it's a good idea,
Right.
but Trump said no, he's going to stand up for the rights of the individual. So that's libertarian, and I think in many ways I understand the sentiment that we need to do what's necessary to reinvigorate the individual liberty. You just talked about your metals group having hard currency, having things which are available to them, which are tangible. Tangible assets are going to be important if anything ever fails. So I think that if you have tangible, even digital assets which are not controlled by a bank, you're better off. And Trump said that. So, as much as anything, Ed, I think Trump understands what is necessary to protect individual freedoms. And by the way, to that point, that's one of the reasons Joe Biden would never go to SEG, besides the fact that I think he'd have a constant craving for tapioca that wouldn't go away, and he couldn't focus on his speech. But other than that, I don't think that Biden would have ever gone. So,
Absolutely. His other line, and by the way, Tony just mentioned hard assets, and we'll be checking in with the folks at Colonial Metals Group this
yeah,
week, next week, and beyond. Call 1-800-805-4034 and see whether it makes sense for your family to get into hard assets, gold, silver. They're willing to give you, I think, up to $10,000 in silver and a free safe if you shift over some of your IRA. So check them out. Let them talk you through it and see if it makes sense for your family. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it might be a very good thing because, as Tony said, you're going to need hard assets
oh
for
yeah,
what's ahead. So we'll be talking about that in the days ahead. But real quick, the other line from Donald Trump was, "Okay, you don't want to endorse me, then go endorse someone who's going to get you 3%, like you got libertarians get every 4 years, and you got a lot of booze for that." But we say Trump was right. Trump was right about that because A, that's typically what happens in presidential elections. But B, in the end, after the speech, they decided, nope, we're not endorsing Trump. Even more interesting, they said, we're not endorsing and giving our line of the libertarians to RFK Jr., who had made a big pitch on Friday afternoon to the same group. So RFK Jr., after all of this work and effort, doesn't get it. And
Yeah.
Cat Turd has just posted, because I was wondering, well, who will be the nominee for the Libertarians? And while he has a sense of humor, he typically posts like, "This is not a joke. This is it." Apparently, this is the Libertarians' presidential nominee. I think the one on the right, by the way, the one on the left is just along for the ride. But you know what? It could be the left or the right. But that says Chase Oliver running for U.S. Senate. This is, ladies and gentlemen, your Libertarian nominee for president. Donald Trump was right, as we say. They're going to get 3%. Maybe they're going to get less than 3% this time, Tony.
Oh, I think they're going to get less than 3%. I don't know why. I don't know why they think that they going to the thrift bin in at Walmart and dressing that way will help them. I don't get it, but
It's crazy.
would you? I mean, think about this. No matter how libertarian you are, would you really have confidence that someone like that could be a senior executive? One of the things I've said publicly, and I'll say it again, obviously, is that as much as I love President Trump, he didn't understand that the federal bureaucracy is different than a business.
Right.
That he appointed guys, and Chris Rance Priebus helped direct him in directions he shouldn't have gone, purposely, I'd say. I think Trump's learned his lesson. So I think that's a great thing about President Trump. I think he's smarter than the average bear when it comes to actually understanding the foibles of the federal bureaucracy. Would you believe someone like that could jump in and actually manage the greatest economy on the planet with the greatest
Right.
military on the planet? I mean, seriously.
Wild. Absolutely wild. Tony
Yeah.
Schaefer, we appreciate you. Tony will be here tomorrow, 9 a.m. And who knows, I may pop up at some point during the show, but Dr. Corsi will be here.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Tony will be back and tell you more about that. Thursday, Larry Schweikert. Friday, the boys. And then the week after, who knows? There's a lot of people out there that you guys have been calling for, like Karen. Who knows? Stay tuned later this week. Tony, we'll see you
Thanks,
tonight,
Ed.
8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern.
We'll see y'all soon.